How do you win a completely flat gravel race?
5 guys are loose.
This race had no climbs, no long technical descents, and no obvious moment where the strongest riders could ride away. The Gravel 150 is 150k with no elevation, but lots of narrow trails, endless twists and turns, crosswind and loose sand. A lot of loose sand. After Turnhout, Grav and the 3 rides, this was my last qualifier, my final chance to take that win and get a priority box ticket for the World Championship. After an early crash, I somehow got back to the front and started controlling like never before. I forced the split, ended up in a 2-man breakaway, and suddenly we were riding for the win. This was the closest I had ever been to winning a UCI qualifier until one small mistake changed everything.
He's right there, trying to catch back on.
Good morning, Sunday morning. It's 9:15. The race starts at 10. I just arrived. I still have to pick up my number. I am really late. I had to work until 12 o'clock, like this morning, midnight. So I had the minimum amount of sleep, grabbed all my stuff, rushed here. But one thing I forgot. My head unit. Fuck. I had everything prepared, put the head unit on the charger. It's fully charged, back home. Well, I managed to sort of sneak my way into the box pretty close to the front. I'm borrowing a cycling computer from Bart, my friend. We're gonna run on 5 hours of sleep and a lot of caffeine and adrenaline. Let's go. 3, 2, 1.
And that's the gunshot. Here we go, 150k. And as I've explained in previous videos, knowing where you're going is crucial in these gravel races, but luckily now I have a head unit for my navigation. But I've never used this brand before, the mount was sideways and the battery was almost empty. So basically I just pressed start and I hoped for the best and that the map would stay up long enough. I had about 30-40 riders in front of me, but it only took like one good line to get to the front where I wanted to be. We went onto the gravel almost immediately. No long neutral section, no wide roads to settle in, just straight onto narrow gravel. But I have to say, the start procedure was very good. There was enough space in between the age groups and the group in front of us. So unlike the Grav, we didn't have to start overtaking hundreds of riders from the first second. And we could ride just with our category as it was a normal race. So I got to the front pretty easily, and at least that worked out well today. I think from all the qualifiers that I had done this year, today would have been my best chance for a good result. Mainly because of the flat terrain and learning from my mistakes back in Turnhout. The first part, as always, was super fast, so I'm just riding for position here. I wanted to stay within the first 10 to 15 riders, because in this age group racing, that matters a lot. We're in the 35 to 39 category, and in front of us is the 19 to 34 group. That group is usually the biggest group, but we are actually faster, believe it or not. And at some point, we know we're going to catch either most of them or all of them. And once that happens, it becomes chaos because you don't always know who is who, and you have to keep a very sharp eye on your own competitors. Luckily today, I didn't have to come from the back of the start box, so I was already in the front, which saved me a lot of energy. So at this moment, it was priority to stay at the front before we started overtaking the other age group, or before we would hit that first loose sand sector. 9 minutes and 40 seconds into this race, and we're already catching the first riders from the group in front of us. And as soon as we hit the gravel, the speed goes up and the group starts stretching out. And this is where the race really begins. On the tarmac, everybody can sit in. But on these narrow sandy sections, the gaps will open fast. And I had raced this race twice before, so I knew kind of what was coming. I knew what the course was like. It was one big zigzagging loop of 150 kilometers, almost completely flat. And after the mistake I made in Turnhout with 2 narrow tires, today I came with a much better setup for these conditions. I prioritized the loose sand, so I adjusted the pressure to that. And of course the tires itself, using a 47mm rear and a 50mm front tire with about 1.3 bars. I'm riding on the C45 UCI Gravel wheels, and they are 27mm internal, so these wheels and tires will still be stable in the turns on these low pressure. I'm still on my old frame because I was building a new G21 UCI frame with a 1x setup specifically for the World Championship, and today the 2x setup would actually work well on the flat terrain. But besides the tires, I made one more change to the bike: the chainwax. I've been using Optimize for years and the performance has always been good, but sometimes it felt a little inconsistent, and I think I found the problem. It's not the wax itself, but the way I waxed the chain. Before, I used a simple pot on the stove and I took the chain out while the wax was still hot. Now I use the Optimize ultrasonic wax cooker, but most importantly, I let the wax cool down to around 60 degrees Celsius before taking the chain out. The ultrasound helps the wax penetrate deeper into the chain, and because the wax is colder when you take it out, more of it stays inside the chain. Since I started doing this, the chain stays silent for the whole race, even in sandy and dusty conditions like today. And on the road, I've ridden over 1,000 kilometers without even re-waxing or applying any drip wax. So if you're not on the wax train yet, give it a try. And if you're already waxing, add this extra short step for the best results. Use code GRAVEL26 at Optimize for 10% off. You can already see how dangerous these overtakes can be. One guy almost gets taken out because the speed difference is so big. A little later, we reached this small bridge where last year actually the whole race just came to a standstill. But this year it went smooth, luckily, and I was still in a good position. So if you raced this race, maybe you're wondering why it doesn't match with your memory. This is last year's Gravel 150. I'm doing a series on my road to the World Championship in 2025, and this was a race in July 2025, and this year the Gravel 150 was actually very early in the season. "60 minutes in the race, we hit the first proper loose sandy parts, and immediately I feel the difference compared to Turnhout. I feel the difference compared to the skinny tires I was on before. There I was just fighting with the bike, but today the wider tires and the low pressure, I can actually keep momentum, I can keep control, and I can overtake other riders with ease without having to push 700 watts just to prevent coming to a halt. And you can see it's already getting a little bit chaotic. There's riders everywhere. So very important to stay at the front and keep pushing, because the elastic band is going to stretch up right now. There will be gaps, and those gaps take energy to close. So it's best to stay up the front and determine the pace. On paper, this race might seem easy, 150k, flat, no climbs, but the loose sand sectors and all the twists and turns, the zigzagging, will cost you so much energy, accelerating 1,000 watts out of every turn and pushing 400, 500, 600 watts on those sandy segments, which we're going to get to. That is going to tear you apart. Fitness-wise, I wasn't sure how it was gonna go. In general, I was super fit this year, but I had worked past midnight the day before, so a very short night. At this point, I felt good, I was motivated, and the goal was clear. I need to win this race to get that priority box for the World Championship. And I felt good, so I was going for it. I got very close a few times, and this was my last planned qualifier, so my last chance at it. 21 minutes in, you may have already noticed I was wearing a camel bag. I'm sipping from that right now. I'll talk about my nutrition strategy later. And you can see we're overtaking pretty big groups of the previous age group. One thing I had missing on the data was my heart rate. I couldn't get it to connect to this head unit, and also the map isn't complete because the battery of the hammerhead died before we got to the finish. You can see we're all in a single file. Now, there's only one reason. It's going fast. Otherwise, this would have been a nice little clump of riders. It would have been a peloton, but not right now. Also, there's wind today. So it depends where the wind is coming from, where you want to sit behind the rider in front of you. Always trying to be in that draft. So right now I'm hugging the end of the road. I'm in the gutter, trying to get a little bit of draft from the guy in front of me. But the guy behind me needs to go in the grass if you want to be in the draft, and that's not possible. So that's gonna be a big factor today. Almost half an hour in, we're entering a pretty nasty trail. I know this section from other races, the Slag om Noor, Bartje 200, if you're familiar with those. And I know the problem here. The cut grass on the sides gets pulled into your cassette and derailleur, and it's happening to me again. And because we're overtaking so many riders, I have to ride out of this little single track through the loose grass. So there's no other way to go through. And immediately my drive chain started making noise. The chain started skipping again in certain gears. So this is super annoying. We're only 18 kilometers into a 150 kilometer race and my bike is already not properly working.
Good toy.
Half an hour in the race. 5 guys are loose, but going through the grass, my whole cassette is filled. It's pretty fucked.
This is playing out exactly how I expected. We're now with 5 riders of my age group at the front, and it broke behind me. That's a good situation. I feel strong, I feel in control, and the real first selection has been made. Now you will see why the setup will matter so much. We hit this loose sand pit at full speed, and while we're trying to pass the other riders, I'm pushing close to 1,000 watts to keep my momentum.
Yoo-hoo!
But today, unlike Turnhout, the bike just flows through and I'm not bouncing around, losing control, cutting in the loose sand. No, I'm just keeping control and I can actually ride through the sand at speed and pass the other riders. So any disadvantage that I would get from my bigger, heavier tires on the road, it just easily outweighs the gains that you get from keeping your momentum and your speed on the sand. So that's really what you should set up your bike for.
Woohoo!
So I'm sitting at the front of my group and I'm just pushing hard, 400-500 watts, and you can see the difference in speed with the other riders, and we're flying past them until I get to this right-hand turn and there's another rider. I give him a heads up,
Yes.
and he moves to the left, so I think he noticed me, but then he steered right back into my line and I ended on the wrong spot. Very big pile up. So what actually happened? As he comes into my line, I move a little further to the right, not to bump into him, but the grass is hiding the edge of the trail. I thought there was still space, but actually there's a deep water ditch, and my wheel just dropped away and I crashed. And because we're super close together, all the other guys piled over me. Some guys even ended up in the ditch, in the water. So I lost that group and now I have to chase back immediately. So back overtaking some of these guys that I've already overtaken before, and now we hit this loose sand strip, 42 minutes in the race, and you can see how quickly this race will break apart on these sand sectors. There's gap everywhere because guys are able to hold the wheel, and I'm trucking along with my tractor tires, and now you can see those massive gaps opening up, and the guys of my group from the breakaway are gone. I had to go all out for a couple minutes, but luckily I managed to close the gap again with the breakaway with those 5 riders of my category. So even though it had been super dry, there's still a few of these wet spots, of these muddy puddles. And I've been praising my knobby tires in previous races, but now I was on wider tires with less profile, so I had to be a bit more careful. It's all about adjusting your riding style to your equipment and vice versa. And right here, one guy almost flies off the bike just in front of me. I managed to dodge him by a hair. So it's very important to stay super sharp because anything can happen. And even after the first hour, this race never settled down. There's still riders from other categories everywhere, and every narrow section or corner has the potential to go wrong. So after that little slip, everything stretches out again, and I'm closing up this gap. This is why it's never easy. There's always stuff happening why you get held up, or you make a mistake, or another rider makes a mistake. There's a little gap in front of you, somebody opens a gap, somebody can't hold the wheel, and you have to close the gap. So there's always reasons why you need to keep pushing, and you need to keep pushing to the front, otherwise you're going backwards. My nutrition strategy today was different. As you can see now, I'm holding a 1 liter endurance bidon, and I had no sideline support today. Since it was a flat race, my weight was less important, and I figured I could go with a hydration pack with 3 liters of plain water and then 2 big 1 liter bottles on the bike with both 180 grams of carbs each. So that's like a double endurance 90 serving per bottle. And I had 6 endurance 45 gels, and this way I could take everything with me from the start line, and these 5 liters should have been enough hydration for 5 hours. But it was one of very few times I was using a hydro pack, and I made another big mistake, which I'm gonna share in the end of this video. Also, the bottles were not just fluid, they were basically most of my nutrition for the whole race. And that created another important situation. An hour and a half in, 50k on the clock, and there's still 100k to go. I feel very good. I want to keep pressure on the group, so we are going hard. Every time there's a loose sector, I'm pushing. Every time we go out of a corner, I'm pushing. Here I'm riding all the way to the right side of the road because the wind is coming from my left, and by riding in the gutter I make it harder for the others to draft. Martin Kelderman and I are doing most of the work right now. I know Martin very well from racing in the same team previously and a bunch of gravel races this year. He's very strong, he's tactically smart, and he's probably the strongest competitor today. If I could get away with him, I knew we had a good chance to stay away to the finish line. Meanwhile, I'm taking a monster pull at the front, and the others are starting to skip turns. And when riders stop working, you either can accept it and you can let them have a free ride, or we're gonna shake the tree. Well, Martin and I were loose with the two of us, but Blue Rider here comes back. I think this is the guy that actually went into the ditch when I crashed, so good work of him to come back. He took a few other riders, so we're back with 5. Situation is the same. Martin and I are pushing. Most of the other guys are just sitting on. So on a flat race, you don't have a climb to attack and make a big difference. I would probably get dropped myself anyway if it was a climb. So we need to use other factors to make a difference to break up the field. You can either use the loose sand, we can go fast through corners, you can use the crosswind, but we just had to wait for the right moment. And Martin tried attacking a few times, and sometimes I was in a bad spot, so I had to go around the other riders to close the gap towards him. And until now, we didn't succeed to shake off the other guys. And there was clearly no cooperation within this group. It was clearly me and Martin doing the work. Beat Rider here was doing his best. Of course, the other guys are tired, I get that, but we don't want some sandbags hanging on our wheels, so at some point, something needs to change. Here we are almost 2 hours in the race, and I did a big pull. Martin comes through, nobody follows. So I pull again, and then the second time, again, they sit on my wheel. And I leave a little gap, giving them one more chance to close it and stay in the rotation, but they don't. And that's the moment when I decide this is gonna stop and I'm gonna drop the hammer. This is what we needed, a long straight road with wind from the left. So I go all the way to the right side, to the edge of the road, and I let Martin sit in my wheel. He knows exactly what I'm doing. And I wanted him to be in my wheel so I can give him some space and some draft. I want him to come with me, and I want to put the rest of these guys in the gutter. And now I'm drilling it full gas, and this is not gonna take long. The other guys are already tired. If you keep this up for a minute or two, they're gonna get a gap, and then we are loose. And it doesn't take long for the other guys to drop. And as soon as we have a gap, I immediately move to the left so we have a bit more space, and then we start rotating. And this works. We drop 2 out of 3 riders. We get a gap on the rest, and then we just kept on drilling. And we also lost the other one, and we kept a very high pace flying over these narrow trails, passing big groups, and we stayed away.
Oh! 20 in de race.
Eindelijk die plakkers eruit.
We moeten nog wel 2,5 uur fietsen.
This was a funny moment. I was filming, and yeah, it was like a little celebration because we had worked for this really hard. We were controlling the situation, but we still had like more than 2 hours to go. And also, I knew that Martin was not gonna hand me this race for free. He knows what happened in the Marley Grav when I sprinted away from his wheel. I finished third and he got left outside of the podium. And today we're not racing for third place. Today we're racing for the win. And for me, that win means priority box at the World Championship. So somewhere the race is going to change. At some point, this will become a fight for the win. 2.5 hours in, we've got 45k to go, and we're still going fast. Every time I'm at the front, I'm pushing 350, 400 watts. But then when Martin takes over, he just increases the pace. He's riding very strong, and I'm starting to feel it. I'm already shaking my legs here, which is usually not a good sign. The sand, the accelerations, the corners, and all the high power efforts are really starting to add up, and I'm getting those muscle twitches again. And after some sharp corners, I'm struggling to hold his wheel. And then I make another crucial mistake.
Fuck! Crashed again.
We were on this narrow trail next to this road with high grass on the sides, and my front wheel catches the grass, skips away, and I go down. It was not a really hard crash, but I lost Martin, and he obviously kept going. And honestly, I don't blame him. We're racing for the win, and I was struggling in his wheel already. So I get back on the bike as quickly as possible.
2 hours to go. Second position. Just crashed. So I lost the number one.
And I can still see him out there, but he seems to be pushing hard as he's going very fast, and I'm already on the limit. I know I have to close this gap now, because if it don't, the win is gone.
Fuck. Stomme kutpaardjes ook. He's right there in a group. He's trying to catch back on. 50k to go.
So he was right there, I could still see him, but then disaster strikes again.
Ook mijn bidon gevallen.
And that was the moment my chances of closing into Martin went to zero. I dropped a full bottle of nutrition, and normally that would not be like a big deal, but in this case it was the last bottle I had, and it had 180 grams of carbs. I needed that bottle to finish strong, and also I was out of fluid in my backpack, so I had to turn around and pick it up. Otherwise, you could never finish this race strong.
I learned something new today. Usually I put my bidons in the freezer because cold water will cool you down better. I did the same with this 3-liter pack, but I still have like a big clump of ice. At least a liter or a liter and a half that I couldn't drink because it was all frozen. So make it cold, but don't freeze it like a block because it's not gonna defrost in time.
So now I'm alone in the second place, and I'm slowing down because the carrot seems to be gone. It was a slap in the face. My last chance was today, and I failed. And then I see a rider behind me, and he was closing in fast, so I just wait for him, and he joins me, and I start riding together. He looks strong, so I sit on his wheel for a bit, trying to recover after I put in my last match to try to catch back on to Martin. From here it was getting harder and harder very fast. On the hard pack I could still keep moving, but every time I got on this loose sand, it hurt. And that's when you need to push like 400 watts just to keep momentum. And that's exactly where my legs are starting to crack. Meanwhile, I'm trying to replace my camera battery. I can't get enough footage with one battery, so usually I take a spare, and last race I didn't change it and I ended up with a dead battery before the finish line, so now I decided to change it. But sometimes it is a bit difficult because if it's going left and right the whole time, I need 2 hands to change this battery, so it was a challenge to keeping myself and the camera alive to the finish line today. So my new buddy here, his name is Sten. He's from the local area and he's got some support. Not 1, but 2 people that are giving him bottles. And he knows the route very well. And that turned out to be a huge help. Because my head unit was dead. Remember the one that I borrowed from the start. So I had no map, no distance, no idea where to turn. I had already made a few wrong turns, so I told Sten, you need to shout at me left and right, because otherwise I'm going to mess this up. Luckily, he also had some extra fluid for me, so that helped a lot since I was almost out. And honestly, Sten was riding very strong and he did most of the work towards the line. I did some pulls, but those were short and his were freaking solid. I'm no longer thinking about catching Martin and winning. With the legs I have now, that's not going to happen. Now I'm getting worried about my second place. I don't know how far the other guys of my category are behind me, but I really don't want to get caught after all of this.
Hoe lang nog? 30 kilometer of zo? 38.
And I keep asking Sten how far we have left, because I was just so cooked. I couldn't wait to finish this race. And I was gonna push everything I have left. I'm gonna work as hard as I could to keep up the speed and to finish before I would get caught.
Nog 27.
That's a sign, 25k to go. I'm just trying to hold Sten's wheel. That's all I'm doing. Every acceleration hurts, and especially in descent. 10k to go, I'm counting down. 10k is like 15 to 20 minutes of suffering. And let's give it up for Sten right here, because he was in the front most of the time. So I don't know what happened to him, but he was coming back from way far behind and catching so many riders and improving his position. At this point, I can't even stay on his wheel, especially accelerating out of the corners. My top end is gone. I can't push high power. So every time he gets a gap, and then it takes me a while to close the gap and get on his wheel, and then we go through a corner again, or we hit a loose segment. So it was just a sufferfest. And in my head, I'm just thinking about how this is gonna make me stronger for the last race of the season. I'm gonna take every bit of experience with me for the World Championship. And then in the final kilometers, Sten closes a big gap towards a massive group of 1934 category. For me, it had no reason to get involved in their sprint, so I was just staying in the back. It's not my category. I wanted to stay safe and just reach the finish line today. Later on, Sten even attacked the group, and I think he won the little group sprint. So that was super cool to see. I just rolled in. I look back one more time to make sure there's no riders from my age group. So I crossed the line in second place. Wow.
Oh, again, absolutely, completely wasted. 2 crashes, completely empty the tank again. Mijn dank is groot.
Gefeliciteerd met je tweede plek.
Fucking sterk, jongen, tot de finish. Tering. Heb jij al die gasten nog even gepakt?
Ik heb sprintje nog gewonnen.
Ja, joh, ik zag je gaan.
My best result so far in a UCI gravel race. But honestly, guys, this one hurt. This was the closest I had been to winning. Together we forced a winning move, and for a long time it looked like this could be the day. But then I crashed, I dropped the bottle, I lost the wheel, and I almost cracked again. I still have some work to do for the World Championship. I will finish my new bike, I will race the National Championship against the elite and pro riders as a final fitness check before my main event this year.